up, book lovers? It is G-Swizz here, and I'm here today to talk about the books that surprised me the most in 2022. If you didn't know, this is a 7 on Sunday topic, and I am the host of 7 on Sunday. I will link the Goodreads page down in the description where you can check it out and you can participate in a topic in the future, or you can suggest a topic. In this week's topic, we are continuing on with the end of year wrap-up topics, and I'm going to be recapping, looking back at the books that surprised me the most. And I decided I wanted to diversify my answers a little bit because, yes, I can get repetitive with some of my favorite book series that I've experienced this year. I mean, a good example being like the Bargainer trilogy or the Fair Isle trilogy, all those kinds of books that I've been mentioning non-stop on my channel. And I mean, yes, there are a few books that I will be mentioning that I have been putting in my videos as of recently, but also I want to try to diversify my answers and not include at least those two series or the Four Horsemen series, because I know they surprised me and I think you guys already know that they surprised me. However, I don't want these end of 2022 yearly topics being too repetitive on here, so I'm going to diversify my answers a little bit and not include those ones specifically. However, I'm still going to go through a bunch of books that really did surprise me this year, and there were a bunch. There were moments where my reading life was pretty mid. I've experienced that lull recently. However, I can say with full confidence that yes, I ended up reading some books that really did wow me, and I want to talk about them today, and I also want to recommend them. So I guess without further ado, I'm going to get straight into the books that surprised me, and hopefully I can recommend something new to you. The first book I would like to bring up today is Sisters of the Snake by Serena and Sasha Nanua. So I ended up purchasing this on Black Friday last year. This right here is the Owl Crate exclusive edition, and I just simply picked it up because I liked the cover and I liked the coloring on the cover. But I did not realize that Sisters of the Snake was going to be a new favorite book of mine, and I'm very much looking forward to the sequel. I have still not picked it up. I haven't pre-ordered it yet. I've been somewhat good in terms of selecting the books that I purchase when it comes to budgeting and whatnot, but yeah, no, I really do need to pick up Daughters of the Dawn because I really need to know what happens next. But what I appreciate about this book is that yes, it is written by two sisters about two sisters, and both POVs in this book blend absolutely seamlessly. I was so blown away at how invested I was in the story. It is actually a pretty chunky book. It's very well fleshed out. It's not exactly fast-paced. At times it does feel like the pace does pick up, but there's definitely a lot of world building as well as a lot of character building and suppressed memories as well. So all of that being said, it's a very exciting adventure. I did not know what I was getting myself into when I initially purchased this book. Overall, Sisters of the Snake made a very good read. It definitely kept me on my toes. I did not predict what was going to happen at any point. It definitely leaves on somewhat of a cliffhanger. However, there is a big overlying plot line resolved within this book, so it's not like you have to continue on with the duology, in my opinion. However, I would like to see what happens next. I really hope that I enjoy the second book just as much as I like the first. I get nervous about duologies, but this one has a really good start to it and it feels like a very full story. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this one if you haven't had the chance to read it yet. And the next book I would like to mention that definitely wowed me in 2022 is The Ex Hex by Erin Sterling. I was very much blown away by this book, and I did not know until I ended up finishing the book that Rachel Hawkins actually wrote this book. Erin Sterling is a pen name for Rachel Hawkins, who is an author of a bunch of YA series, and I think most recently like crime thriller books, which is very interesting. However, as of recently, they've started writing adult romance books, and The Ex Hex, I believe, is the first book written under Erin Sterling's pen name, and that's really exciting. I'm very much looking forward to The Kiss Curse. Unfortunately, they released it in trade paperback, and I am not cool with that, but I plan to get the Fairyloot special edition of The Ex Hex, but I'll let you know in the captions whether I was lucky enough or not. I loved this so much, and I think I wasn't going to love it as much because the reviews were mixed. On Goodreads, it doesn't have the highest Goodreads rating. However, The Ex Hex still remains to be like very hyped. Like, it's talked about, I believe, on Book Talk. It like literally the subtitle at times on websites that I go on say that it's like a Book Talk sensation and whatnot. And personally, I find that very interesting because it's not necessarily rated that high. I can see why it's not rated that high. It's not a very long novel, so it's not like much has been established in here. However, I personally really loved the romance, the second chance romance romance blossoming between the two main characters, and I personally appreciate both their maturity levels, especially regarding what happened in the past that led up to the events of this book. For some reason, I just love it all. I love the message of forgiveness and letting go, and to top it all off, a very beautiful love story. And yes, speaking of one-sitting reads, I'm gonna go on the complete opposite side of the spectrum here. I'm not gonna talk about fluffy reads, I'm gonna talk about a really heavy one. And the really heavy one that I am referring to is The Blood Trials by N.E. Davenport. This is a debut novel. I wasn't actually expecting anything from this. Like, I heard that this is definitely for fans of Red Rising, but I'd say that if you are a fan of Divergent, Alice in Borderland, Squid Game, The Hunger Games, all those forms of media, I would highly recommend this book. It is so well written, it's very fast-paced, but also it takes its time. And I think that's what I appreciate about it. There's a lot of world building done in here, there's a lot of character building and character growth. I personally want more from another character in the sequel, but if we're not gonna get that in the sequel, okay, I'm happy to hear more from our protagonist, because personally, I enjoyed following our protagonist in here, and I feel like she has every right to be angry with the system. She's a very driven character based on that, and it was because that she had that drive and determination. I had the drive and determination to get through this book and also say, yeah, you know what, F the system in here. I felt a lot while reading this book, and you know what, I read it within one sitting. I was that obsessed. Yes, I have the Illumicrate Special Edition. I purchased it on a whim. I decided, okay, if I'm gonna get the Bone Witch set, I may as well just add this on because it is a very pretty book. Like, my only motivation with this book was to buy it because it was pretty. I did not realize that this was gonna be one of the best books I read this year, but I'm really happy I read it because it's so good. And I still recommend it to everyone because unlike the Ex Hex that I just mentioned, this one is severely underhyped and it does not deserve to be slept on. So I would highly recommend it if you do like the forms of entertainment that I would comp it to. And the next surprising read that I've got to mention is somewhat of a palate cleanser, but also has a mysterious plot line to it. Like, it's very interesting, and that, my friends, is My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey. I love this because it's romantic suspense. I love the fuzziness that the romance gives me, but also I love the intensity that the suspense gives me. And yeah, you know what? I think I am surprised that I really loved this one because, once again, the reviews weren't amazing. It was kind of like a similar situation to the Ex Hex where the reviews were very much a mixed bag. And honestly, I can definitely see why. This romance is very much insta-lovey. It's very much intense. It's very much not based on an actual relationship. It's definitely based on lustful feelings and whatnot, but it's good. And it kind of matches the intensity of the suspense. So if anything, I think I appreciate this novel more for its intensity rather than its romance overall. I mean, I definitely enjoyed the smut, I will say that. But if anything, I enjoyed the intensity of the thrilling moments, and I would definitely read more from Tessa Bailey if she happened to write more romantic suspense. I have been wanting to get into romantic suspense ever since this novel. Thankfully, soon after, I was recommended the Twisted series. So I'm looking forward to diving into those and other romantic suspenses that come my way. I personally loved this because I enjoyed the best of both worlds overall. Now I'm going to talk about some manga, and the first manga volume I'm going to be bringing up is Dandadan Volume 1. I've only read Volume 1 so far, but it definitely wowed me. It definitely shocked me because I knew that this was going to be weird, but I don't know why. It was kind of like my kind of weird. Like, yes, there are aliens, there are spirits, there's all sorts of woo-woo in here, but I expected it to be like really creepy, but it ended up being a good balance of weird and humorous at the same time. It's also very funny because this is part of the Shonen Jump label, and it's very rare you would find something like this in the Shonen Jump label, but I think that Shonen Jump took a risk by picking up Dandadan. I'm very much looking forward to reading the rest of the series, but not only that, I'm looking forward to the potential anime adaptation because it's only recently been announced. This first volume got me so pumped. I think I wouldn't have been open to read Dandadan if I wasn't wowed and pleasantly surprised by Chainsaw Man by Tatsuki Fujimoto. This was another manga series in 2022 that took my world by storm. Dandadan, I only read one volume of and I was impressed. With Chainsaw Man, however, I read an entire arc and I got into the anime as of recently, and what I can say is I have been absolutely obsessed ever since I started the series. I'm so impressed because, once again, this is another bizarre series to have ended up on the Shonen Jump label, but Shonen Jump picked it up, and honestly, I'm so happy that they did because Chainsaw Man, as much as it sounds very basic, as much as a lot of people find it very degenerate as soon as they jump into it because the protagonist, Tatsuki Fujimoto, absolutely knew what he was doing when he started writing Chainsaw Man. Like, yeah, it started off very small, but it ended up going on a wider scale, and the writing is just incredible. The way that he's built built up this story is amazing. And as I'm reading arc 2 right now, the way that he set that up, I am just so impressed. I will read anything by Tatsuki Fujimoto. I have decided. I am absolutely impressed by Chainsaw Man, and honestly, I would recommend to absolutely everyone to not stop at volume 1 because yeah, you know, volume 1 is a little bit daunting. You get Denji's backstory, and if you don't like Denji straight away, it's understandable why you don't want to continue. But if anything, don't continue this series on for Denji, because as much as, you know, you might grow to like him eventually, there's so much more to the story than Denji. Trust me. Chainsaw Man was absolutely amazing. It surprised me. It wowed me. It still does to this day. I am absolutely obsessed with the series and would 100% recommend it to absolutely everyone who's watching this video right now. And the next book I've got to mention that absolutely wowed me this year, it's actually a full series, like a 4-book series that I feel like I've mentioned a few times on my channel as of recently, but because we are nearing the end of the year and I only recently read it, I am allowing myself to be a little bit repetitive with this one, so I'm breaking the rules a tiny bit, and I'm going to be bringing up the Diviner series by Libba Bray. I love this series so much, and I did not think I was going to like it. I thought to myself that it was probably going to be a chore to read the series because it's scary. It's not typically something that the faint of heart would read or someone who has anxiety would read. But I took a chance on it because the Bookish Box special editions were really hard to resist. I cannot believe I resisted the Fairyloot special editions, and you know what? I absolutely regret that because the Diviner series is so good and it absolutely deserves special edition treatment. Like, every book box needs to do the Diviners. I mean, I've decided it, okay? I mean, I don't make the rules, I know, but like, please, Illumicrate, jump onto it. Faycrate, jump onto it. Fablecrate, jump onto it. Like, just do it. I do have the Bookish Box special editions. I did Cave. I had FOMO, okay? I mean, I didn't have full intention to read it, but I just decided, okay, you know what? It might be a good Halloween read. I might give it a try. And oh my goodness, it changed my life. This series, I will not stop talking about. Whenever I need to remind myself of an adrenaline-inducing read or an experience, I will always remind myself of the time that I read the Diviners series, even though that was technically like a month and a half ago now as I'm speaking. This book series, I would highly recommend it to everyone. I was so blown away by it, and I don't read horror. This classifies as a horror, fantasy, paranormal, historical fiction series. I know it falls under many sub-genres and subcategories. I would still recommend it because it's probably one of the most unique things I have ever read, and I don't think I can compare it to anything really. The second last book I would like to mention in this video that absolutely wowed me this year is Master of Crows by Grace Draven. Now, I could have mentioned the Wraith King series by Grace Draven. However, I think what's even more surprising to me is how much I loved a fantasy standalone. I get asked a lot about fantasy standalone recommendations, and I honestly cannot give them because I don't read them. I don't like reading fantasy standalones, and the reason why I don't is because majority of the time I don't feel like they are a full story, and a lot of the time I feel like they should have gone for longer, or they should have been extended, or I would have really just wanted to read a series and follow these characters over a series period. I don't know. I just want to be really attached to characters in a fantasy world, so I want to follow them for a longer time. I don't read standalones much as a result. However, I decided I was going to give Grace Draven's Master of Crows a chance, and I am so happy I did because this is one of the only standalones that I have read so far that falls into the fantasy genre that I was fully satisfied with, fully impressed with, and honestly, I'm 100% okay with only having this standalone novel as the story for these two characters. Also, the thing that I really like about it is that it is a Beauty and the Beast reimagining, and I am a huge Beauty and the Beast gal. I am obsessed with Beauty and the Beast because it was my favorite Disney fairy tale growing up. I really love seeking out more Beauty and the Beast reimaginings, so Grace Draven made it easy for me. I actually don't know whether I like Master of Crows better than Wraith Kings or not, but I will have to make a decision before my favorites countdown video because I'm really struggling to figure it out at the moment. And last but certainly not least, the final book that I want to mention on this list today that absolutely wowed me in 2022 is a sequel to a series that, I mean, I've just recently revisited the world, so I might get emotional right now. This isn't a book that I recently read. I read this book back in March when it first came out, but I was absolutely surprised, absolutely wowed by it, absolutely blown away by it. And that, my friends, is Court by Tracy Wolff. As I'm filming this video right now, I'm filming this in the morning, right? I stayed up all night reading Charm, which is the next book that comes after this, but it's also technically a book that takes place between books 1 and 2. However, Court leads into it. And yes, you will only understand what I'm saying if you've at least read past book 1. Sorry, I'm a little bit emotional right now. I'm a little bit emotional because Charm was absolutely beautiful. But unlike Court, Charm, I expected everything. Like, I expected to love it because I knew what the book was about. I knew that the book was not going to be a fast-paced book. I knew that the book wasn't going to be as plot-driven. It was definitely more of a character-driven book because it's essentially a love story between two characters. The entire book is essentially a romance novel that does have some plot, but it's an origin story of two characters. However, Court takes the romance and shoves it into the backseat. And I didn't realize that I needed that until I read Court, because when I was reading Court, I was like, wait a second, where is Grace and, I mean, my favorite, Hudson? Where are they? I don't see them together. They're always separated. I don't know why. And you know what? Tracy Wolfe did that for a reason, and she did that to move the plot forward. But she didn't do that in a way that was going to break our hearts. No, she just literally did it because she wanted to focus on the story. And there was so much more story to tell. Covet was a very slow book, but it was definitely a very good book in terms of their character development together and separately, like personally. Whereas Court focuses a lot on almost all key players. If anything, the entire Crave series is about Grace and her character development. And I heavily resonate with Grace a lot. We have similar struggles, not completely, but similar. Also, I mean, we have the same name, we have the same hair color, whatnot. Yeah, I definitely do see myself in Grace, except I like to picture her as like a teenage version of me, you know? I love this book series so much, and I reckon that Court took the book series to the next level. This book absolutely wowed me because Covet was really slow. And you know what? Pretty much every Crave book up until this point was somewhat slow, whereas Court really changed the pace. It really changed the game for this series. If you are wondering whether you should continue on with the Crave series or not, I would recommend getting to Court because there are so many amazing revelations in here, and like the last couple chapters destroyed me but also put me back together at the very same time. It led into Charm, and yeah, I could gush about this pretty much all day because I have just read Charm and I'm really emotional over Charm right now. I'm personally unstable right now because I haven't had any sleep over this one book, but let me tell you, I love this series. I've been into the series for a year and a half, and the year and a half, in my personal opinion, has been worth it, even though I desperately need book 6 now. So I guess that's gonna be it for this video today, book lovers. If you happen to stay to the end of the video, leave me the yellow heart emoji because I just showed Court and the cover's yellow. And if you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet already. Join the amazing community of book lovers. And also, I have social medias, Matt G Swizzle Books on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also a Goodreads. That's www.goodreads.com/gswizzle, and I'm finally at TikTok, Matt G Swizzle on TikTok, if you want to follow me there for some bookish content. I love you, book lovers, and I will see you later. Peace.
Half and I flipped it in a double. Started out with half and I flipped it in a double.